Hello everybody and welcome back to ApexTV. Today we have a very special guest on the program. Today we're talking with Q, who claims to work at a quantum computing company. Hello Q and welcome to ApexTV.
Hey, thanks for having me, Apex.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. So you say you work at a private company, right? That has to do with quantum computing?
Private company that is essentially a startup, but it's
Okay.
a computing company that purchased a quantum computer and has been. We have some theoretical physicists and other
Mhm.
employees, and we're
All right. May I ask what your position is at that?
position originally started off as just a full stack software engineer,
Okay.
and then that transitioned into some of our other projects. So we use quantum computers and we
Mhm.
run experiments with quantum computing. But there are different projects, and depending on the project, it changes the scope of the work, of course.
Okay. Yeah. May I ask what are you guys working on right now?
So we're using quantum computing to solve like a number of issues.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you know much about quantum computing.
Yeah, not much at all.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of times, people have communicated when it comes to quantum computing that
Mhm.
they think it's something that's just super far out in the future.
Yeah.
And a lot of what people talk about as far as technology when it comes to AI,
Mhm.
deep machine learning, as well as potentially accessing parallel universes,
Mhm.
has to do with quantum computing. And people essentially communicate that this is something that's going to come or it's being hidden from you,
Mhm.
when in reality it's very much so public and available, and there's a lot of information, which is what is allowing me to communicate to you now about it.
Interesting. So, can you explain how quantum computing has to do with parallel universes?
Basically, the best way is, I guess, would be to simply talk about what we are essentially building.
Mhm.
But we've already built machines that it can exploit and other worlds, parallel universes.
Really, are those being held
That's
secret from
that's
the?
already.
Okay, are they secret from the public then?
So as far as like machines that are actually already doing that, they are
Mhm.
not. They are
They're
not
not.
actually held secretly from the public. If you do enough research, you can actually
Mhm.
see that it's very much more open and aware now.
Okay.
And these technologies are what a lot of the times, and actually from watching some of your videos
Mhm.
and listening to other people talk about potentially the future, a
Yeah.
lot of those things are actually very scientifically based and possible due to quantum computing.
Okay, so you say it's in the public. Where can one find information on quantum computers?
A bunch of information that you could look through and access, and read about quantum computing.
Mhm.
As far as commercial quantum computing, that's how our company had obtained quantum computer, is from
Okay.
purchasing it commercially.
So you
So
actually
they are
bought it.
available for
Okay.
those who. Yeah, so our company is actually not the company who actually created the quantum computer.
Okay.
We purchased the quantum computer and are using it to exploit and to essentially research and test and complete things that we want to complete. And that's where
Yeah.
it can get a little bit. Um,
So do you think the government has these quantum computers?
they most definitely do,
Okay.
yes, and it's actually public knowledge as well that they do have them,
Mhm.
including Lockheed, I believe. So
Yeah.
I know some about Area 51. I'm
Mhm.
not too much of a conspiratist, but I do. There are certain things that I definitely believe in. But they have one. NASA has purchased quantum computers from
Okay.
this company, which is called D-Wave. Basically, is the company who's most publicly known for selling
Mhm.
commercial quantum computers
Yeah.
and pushing the boundary.
All right. I'll be sure to look into that company later. But do you think there'd be any applicable use for a quantum computer in time traveling?
Yeah, so there's actually an applicable use
Mhm.
in many ways.
Okay.
So as far as when it comes to the future, artificial intelligence,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the quantum computer is like creating the quantum computer for us as a species is
Mhm.
essentially like creating the wheel, the first wheel.
Wow.
So it really unlocks a lot of opportunity for advancing artificial intelligence
Mhm.
and science when it comes to, and as physicists would say, just exploring not only exploiting but exploring parallel universes.
Okay, so
And
are
so,
yeah, are quantum computers more similar to the human brain than, the standard computer I'm using right now to record this?
I wouldn't even give the human brain that much credit in
Okay.
comparison to quantum computers, because the basically when it comes to like programming languages, for example,
Mm-hmm.
it's the reason we have to communicate in programming languages to a computer is not because the computer is dumb and we have to communicate in a language
Yeah,
so that it can understand. It's that it's so advanced that it in order for it to understand us, we have to communicate in a language that breaks it down into binary.
I see. And these
So
yeah, and these quantum computers are leaps and bounds ahead of any normal desktop
yes,
computer. Okay. Could you
yes,
explain?
classic computers.
Oh, go ahead.
Say, for example, one quantum computer that's very close, publicly they say has not been created,
Mm-hmm.
is, let's say, 100 million times better than a classic computer.
Wow. Wow. So,
Quantum computing is exponential over time because
mhm.
of the nature of qubits. And so there's there's an exponential ability to tap into, and this is where
Yeah.
artificial intelligence and machine learning is also very heavy. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, as well as accessing parallel universes.
So we have these quantum computers. Is the real issue that we actually need to develop programs for them, like something for an AI? Would we actually to develop the AI? Is that the problem we're faced with now?
Yeah, I'd say the two largest problems.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first largest problem is the limitations that artificial intelligence has through quantum computing.
Okay.
Intelligence as itself in machine learning is very intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know too much about super intelligent machines that would basically be able to have not only consciousness, but they'd be millions of times smarter than any human,
Wow.
um, as well as like the power to use that consciousness to explore and interact in a way that the
Yeah.
human brain currently does not,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so that we can solve problems that we can't currently
Mm-hmm.
solve.
Yeah. 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 Do you think there exist any super intelligent AIs as of us talking right now?
Yeah, I definitely believe that. As far as what they
Okay.
present to the public, it's always much. It's way late in the fact, if
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
sense. In my mind, in my experience with this, is that they are communicating things to the public and allowing things to be
Mm-hmm.
what I say when I say they, but I would think primarily the government.
Yeah.
As far as what they're allowed to communicate and what is allowed to be revealed is
Mm-hmm.
always behind the curve.
For
So,
sure.
for
Yeah.
example, like media will start presenting things and make people comfortable with things 10, 15, 20 years prior to releasing any kind of information.
Yeah. Which makes
There was
sense.
time. Yeah, so for example, if there was time travel and
Mm-hmm.
it's not just a theory, but it's an actual scientific exploitation of a quantum computer accessing a parallel universe,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of quantum computer, they would communicate it as something that's just going to be for robots now,
Yeah.
when it's actually already been, quantum computers have been around since 2011. They've been around for
Wow.
several years before this year,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, so I definitely believe that there's a lot going on there that is not discussed, and it isn't. These computers are in the hands of people who are just purchasing them for millions of, if not more, if they can
Yeah. Do,
purchase more than one.
do you think it's possible that the ability to time travel by way of these quantum computers exists as of right now?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. As
So,
well as I believe that they allow us to also break through in
mm-hmm.
medical ways that we have never been able to break through before. And this is because computers are very their memory made of bits, zeros and ones, like that's what they are. Versus quantum computers uses a
Mm-hmm.
sequence of qubits. So if you can imagine, quantum computers, they don't just represent like a one or a zero in binary.
Mm-hmm.
They can have a superposition, and then those two qubits can have states. And a regular computer can be only in one state at a time,
Mm-hmm.
in multiple states at a time.
Okay. Now I don't really
And so
understand a lot of this language. Like, for example, what is a
definitely,
qubit?
it's to try to explain a single qubit. The best way,
Mm-hmm.
and for simplicity's sake, I could say is a single qubit can represent a 1, a 0, or quantum superposition.
Okay.
But as far as like what a qubit is, I could give you like a more formal definition.
Okay, and what would that be?
Right over here. I actually have it written down over here, like a very
Yeah.
scientific explanation of it.
All right, sounds good.
The general one, but basically it's
Mm-hmm.
similar to a classical bit where the state of the transistor. So these are military transistors. That's
Mm-hmm.
everything that makes up a computer is based on a processor, and that processor is made
Okay.
of transistors. And so everything breaks down that we experience, even though a lot of it is very diluted and nobody really knows what goes beyond the surface,
Mm-hmm.
is computers, right? Everything
Yeah.
comes down to the processor and the transistors, and there's, thousands of transistors on one processor.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's really actually computing down to zeros and ones.
Okay. Including the
But
quantum
yeah,
computers?
so the quantum computers, how they, and forgive me because I'm not also a like a quantum computing like engineer,
Yeah, I
if that
understand.
makes sense. So sometimes it's like kind of hard to communicate some of these things.
Yeah, I
But
understand.
essentially, like if you imagine like a state of 0 or 1 and it's one or the other,
Mm-hmm.
anything but one or the other, and everything we breaks down to that, even a letter or a character or word
Yeah.
or color, all
Yeah.
breaks down into a 0 or 1. A quantum computer can say, I want to have different positions, and it can even have entanglement. It can even get tangled, but essentially it
Mm-hmm.
can be 0, 1, and 0 at the same time as this position of a different expression.
Interesting. So, do you think that time travel will one day be released to the public?
Do and I don't think it's just something, because I myself am not a traveler,
Mm-hmm.
and I've obviously watched a lot of your videos, and I've
Mm-hmm.
I'm always hoping for the future to be a more a better future.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, a lot of times I base things on kind of a rational approach of what really exists and what can I look at that would present an access to, or present those things in the very
Mm-hmm.
real world now. It's artificial intelligence, breakthroughs in medicine, and being able to use the quantum computer to create um, models that we've never even been able to create with a standard computer.
Yeah. So,
Actual,
so
different solutions and
regarding
intelligence.
regarding the human brain, do you think the human brain is like a computer in any way? Or will these computers, for example, do you think they'll have rights someday in the future due to them being as smart or even smarter than us?
There currently was, and this was probably a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was the first U.S. or not citizen, U.S. citizen, but first robot citizen of a country
There was?
announced publicly.
Which country was
So there
that?
is an art. This was this Iran or Iraq, I believe.
Okay. I don't know.
Too, but there's some videos. Her name's Sophia.
Oh, I've
She
seen
was
that.
the first.
I've seen some YouTube videos on
Yeah,
her. Mm-hmm.
Sophia was the first official robot citizen.
Wow.
But the thing about Sophia is, a lot of people might see Sophia and be really freaked out. I know my wife was, for sure.
Yeah, I was.
But Sophia is, Sophia is a very she may be using machine learning and she may be using artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
But as you can see, sometimes they even script her and set her up with certain, it almost seems like programmed words.
Yeah.
And this is because she is not a quantum computer.
Mm-hmm.
She does not, a quantum computer is not being, there's nothing in her software using a quantum computer
Mm-hmm.
to articulate and use machine learning for her to be able to function
Yeah.
smarter over time. But quantum computing will exponentially increase that process of learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is it's not even a question without a doubt to the rational person that in the future, within potentially even the next 10 years, we will see artificial intelligence in robots that apparently some countries are going to adapt and say are citizens.
Wow. So, with these quantum computers, do you think it's possible to achieve some sort of exponential growth in terms of AI, since the AI could continually improve itself? So we could see hundreds of years of progress.
That's the biggest concern.
Yeah. We could see hundreds, if not thousands, of years of progress in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and that's really the big piece of quantum computing. That's a change in our history
Hmm.
that really sets this era apart in the future for us, apart from
Yeah.
really even the last 30, 40 years. But I mean, you look at the increase in technology in the last 30, 40 years and how it's helped us with medicine and how it's increased our well-being for the most part,
Hmm.
and even social implications.
For
But
sure.
quantum computers, when it comes to artificial intelligence, if you know, in a simple way of saying it, if you had 10 people sit down at a dinner table,
Yeah.
in your mind, you might think there's only really like a couple of different options the human brain would think of how you could seat these people, when in
Hmm.
fact it's 10. It's really millions of different options
Hmm.
that you otherwise wouldn't even think about. That a computer will non-biasedly, um, will, especially through machine learning and artificial intelligence, be
Yeah.
able to determine all of those options and actually narrow them down, to the best option, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. Even though in that case, it'd be predetermined by the query of what kind of options you'd want it to have.
Yeah. When I take a step back and like look at the state of the world, look at the state of technology, where it's heading, it almost seems as if we're some kind of precursor for some advanced type of being, that we're going to be the ones that build another far smarter being, like almost a certain step in evolution. Do you think in the far future, maybe it's not the far future, maybe it's the next couple of years, but do you think that someday these super intelligent AIs will find us, um will look at us like in the same sense that we look at an ant, as very unintelligent, and I don't know if I buy into the whole that they're gonna wipe us out, because maybe that they'll just leave us alone and they'll go colonize other planets possibly. But do you think
Well,
down somewhere
yeah,
down the line that these computers will become far smarter than us, and sort of look down on us in a way?
in the nature of how they'll look at us, there won't be necessarily
Hmm.
a view of what we consider necessarily like a judgment.
Okay.
Um, I think that I think that the thing about computers is
Hmm.
it's really how they're used, not in and of themselves.
Hmm.
I can imagine that they can become so smart that the distinguished ability to view almost identical to a human,
Hmm.
because they can even have facial expressions due to science and math behind that,
Yeah, yeah.
in certain situations, and they're applicable. I don't think that they'll. I definitely agree. I don't think that they will all reliance or artificial intelligence in the future will destroy and wipe out mankind. Although I
Okay.
think that to not put restrictions on it now
Yeah.
and to really just almost close what really is occurring in our generation date now, that
Hmm.
has the implications on the future. There will be positive aspects of the quantum computer that can be used to cure cancer and different variants of cancer,
Oh,
and
for sure. Yeah.
that's factual. That's not,
Hmm.
in 2028, we'll have a cure to cancer. We
Yeah.
will, with quantum computing at the rate in which we're increasing in it. But yeah,
Wow.
I definitely, it's hard to say because I might have my own personal opinions about
Hmm.
um, being preset, and even when it comes to parallel universes, I
Hmm.
truly believe that there is one creator, and that essentially because this creator has given us free will, that we
Hmm.
essentially in every moment that any individual makes a different decision, it has an effect on and creates an alternate, um, parallel universe.
Yeah.
And each of these are made up of very unique moments in time that individuals with free will have changed.
Hmm. Do you
And
think?
all of these parallel
Yeah.
universes.
That's the question, though. Do you think these AIs will have free will in the future?
I think that they very much will. I think that
Hmm.
you see some things like that are already taking the floor when it comes to our world today, like Elon Musk and Tesla and the
Hmm.
fully autonomous, Tesla vehicles that will essentially be able to get in your car and it will change how you drive forever.
Yeah.
The car is smarter than you as a human driver and will not make the same amount of errors, and you can literally fall asleep at the wheel, and but at any
Hmm.
point in time there's a button for override, and so I think that
Yeah.
the intent behind artificial intelligence and computing is to provide control, that we will always have control,
Hmm. For sure.
but something that is something of concern depending on what we're building, and it is something that is kind of out of sci-fi movies, but it's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah. Yeah.
realistic. in terms of just survival and how they may view us.
Like I heard someone say like, what if we made a AI that its sole purpose was to I don't know, make stocks rise or something, and it determined that the way to do that was to start a war, or what if they accidentally did something that we didn't code into it that could accidentally cause some catastrophic damages to humanity.
I have no doubt that that's a concern.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, when I look at artificial intelligence and what I do for work and what I'm experiencing
Yeah.
from the side of being able to what I can see and I have access to that I did not have access prior to entering into this field.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a physicist, and I haven't been working for the government or something for a long time. And it's interesting kind of how everything is actually tied together,
Mm-hmm.
where you can be working on something that is private but is still connected to the government. There's a lot of
Okay.
different things that are there, but I think that it is something to be concerned about, but not frantic,
Mm-hmm.
because the improvement aspect of it, what'll determine like what the use is behind it. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, when we talk about the future and devices that can be implanted in your head that can, use your own to recognize a facial recognition and
Mm-hmm.
then give you an information overload in your brain, or somehow at least visually to you or vocally internally,
Mm-hmm.
to give you conscious access. And um, this stuff sounds like science fiction, but with
Yeah.
quantum computing it is possible.
Wow. Do you think
And with
someday we'll be
artificial
able
intelligence
to?
machine learning it's possible.
Yeah. Do you think someday we'll be able to interface our brains with the internet, like for example, like a phone does? Because when you take your phone, it only has access to so much knowledge and information, but when you connect it with the internet, it's got all of human knowledge, just by a simple Google search. Do you think someday we'll be able to do that sort of inside of our own brains?
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean,
Wow.
it's one of those things that's weird to just say out there that that's what you believe.
It is. Yeah.
But it's another thing to really look at the facts and
Mm-hmm.
realize that it is happening and it will
Wow.
happen, and somebody will build it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody thought that we'd have fully electric powered car, um, you know, a
Yeah.
roadster, something incredible that's accessible, or even semi trucks
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
accessible in 2018, 2019, or yet alone that
Mm-hmm.
we'd be even contemplating occupying Mars,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely occupying the moon. That
Yeah.
it's going to happen.
Okay. So
If it's the best way to say it is if it's not already happening.
yeah. Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
from my experience and from where I'm seeing, is that this
Mm-hmm.
stuff is already being built.
Wow. And speaking
And
of
some of this stuff has already been out for years, and these
mm-hmm.
aren't things that are necessarily like
Private.
hush hush,
Mm-hmm.
kind of generally talked about, but are occurring.
Do you think a lot of this might be public, but there's nobody, so to say, publicizing it?
Aspect of why I want to communicate it is I
Mm-hmm.
think that to the standard person, they're really unaware of the kind of society that we're living in now and what is ahead of
Yeah.
us. And a lot of people really tend to live maybe with an idea of what will happen in the next year or two,
Mm-hmm.
and they may have a plan for their own life. But I think that in regards to looking at the world and the current state of the world and how what their life is going to look like in the next 10, 15, 20 years,
Yeah.
they aren't there. There's some people who are definitely more aware and are, like I think people who listen to your videos and
Mm-hmm.
um, who are more aware.
Yeah.
But there's definitely an aspect of missing
Yeah. You
the
think it's gonna
culture of
come
what
as
is
a
occurring.
yeah, you think it's gonna come as a big shock to a lot of people how fast this technology is gonna advance?
Just like anything, right? Like 40 years ago, if you would have said that I'd have a computer on my watch and that I could
Yeah.
call someone like the Jetsons, you
Exactly.
would have laughed at me and thought I was completely
Mm-hmm.
insane. But to say something like, hey, we are going to use a quantum machine that has really changed everything,
Mm-hmm.
and it allows us to not only exploit but explore parallel universes and have access
Yeah.
to them, where the basis of time travel now becomes something that isn't just a theory, but potentially accessing a different parallel universe. And if you can
Wow.
access a different parallel universe using a quantum computer,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to essentially send atoms somewhere without even having to like degrade the atoms and then bring them back together and
Mm-hmm.
put them in the same sequence, if you didn't even have to do that, you could just simply access another parallel universe. What's to say you couldn't manipulate, eventually, given enough time and research, quote unquote, if it was being made right now,
Mm-hmm.
that that would allow you to eventually manipulate and control that and specify this is the time frame, this is the location, this is everything. And
Yeah.
now the effect and the implication on parallel universes, I mean, I've only theorized based on listening to your videos and what
Mm-hmm.
my own opinions would possibly be. I
Yeah.
can't give any like scientific explanation for what is the difference, and how things affect other things.
Mm-hmm.
I have a personal opinion that Mandela effect is very real and is because of
Mm-hmm.
exploitation of potentially quantum machines currently,
Wow.
and that's where I really think it's coming from now. And
Wow.
it could be that from what your videos have said, some people have specified that it
Mm-hmm.
already exists. You just don't know about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that the hint for the public is to recognize that quantum computing is here, has been here,
Mm-hmm.
and can be used to access other parallel universes. And so if that's the case,
Mm-hmm.
then what's to say that by 2028 it wouldn't be released to the public? They
Yeah.
may be warming us up with artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
and giving us a couple of cures to cancer, and through time slowly integrating us and embracing us for that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Because
think
it's
that
gonna come
culture
as
is
such a big shock to so many
I
people.
think the thing too is
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest setback is people are mainly concerned about the implications it would have on organized religion. And I think
Yeah.
that if there are parallel universes and that you could travel between parallel universes and in time,
Mm-hmm.
the creator of all of that, is there truly any? Is there even one?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that in time it'll become embraced, just as religion has over time embraced society and the changes in culture that explain things that once were not, and therefore negatively exploited. I think in time
Mm-hmm.
we'll come around to that if there is parallel universes, and there is a design simulation per se, which is kind of a dramatic way to say it,
Yeah.
that it's highly, if anything, it's more evidential and that there was something set from the start.
Yeah. Like we
Um,
could be living inside some type of computer.
exactly, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's possible that could still provide free will, right? And if you really truly
Yeah. Yeah.
had something where something had free will,
Mm-hmm.
not fully programmed, but within free will,
Mm-hmm.
that would, any kind of decision that's made, any kind of implication could truly change everything. And then that would be the theory behind creating multiple parallel universes would even be created in my mind.
Yeah. And a
If
lot of
it would
people
exist
argue
that
that.
way is if there's free will.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people do argue that free will doesn't exist. What do you say to those people?
To me personally, I think
Mm-hmm.
that free will does exist.
Okay.
And I think if free will did not exist, then there would be no such thing as parallel universes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
That would make
if free
sense.
will
That would
never
make sense.
existed,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if free will never existed, then then everything would be set to chart, and there would be no changing it.
Mm-hmm.
Using quantum computing, especially if it was futuristic and controlling it, set
Yeah.
back or something crazy, there's no way it would make a mistake to let a modern person, all of a sudden change their path.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Exactly.
free choice is what actually supports the idea of parallel universes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think that there's still higher level control over all of that, right? I mean,
Yeah. For
I
sure.
think the machine can allow free will up to a point, and then say, okay, we can still limit and we can still condition the situations in which free will can be exercised, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which begs the difference of, is that still free will? In my opinion, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If I can choose between my closet and choose which clothes I want to wear, but ultimately if I want to go to a certain event, I have to wear a black tie and a suit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that now I've lost free will. I think it's just a matter of understanding that at that point it's been decided there's no way you can do this, and then I've completely
Yeah.
agreed with it.
For
Comes
sure.
to term with it and accepted it, and matter of fact, put it right in my pocket, because that's what phones are when it comes to surveillance, anyways.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is that
When
literally your phone is sitting in your pocket and you say diabetes, and 30 minutes later you're looking through Instagram and there's diabetes medication.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people
Added
stuff
on
like
your
that
phone.
happening to them. Yeah, yeah, they're talking about dog food, and they open up Facebook and there's a bunch of dog food advertisements.
And that's not, and people are very freaked out about it, or they are like, "Whoa, this is just a breach of information,
Yeah.
privacy." But what they don't realize is they signed that right away
They
when they gave their
say,
phone away.
exactly. Nobody
They've been
actually
doing that
reads
for
those terms
years.
of service.
And the same for the culture, right? I mean, to
Yeah.
not have a phone is like you're out, you're behind beyond prehistoric times now. You're a
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Neanderthal. So I think that culture also the influences that, and to stand outside of that, you're almost looked at as obviously as strange,
For
and
sure.
probably a little batty, and
Hmm.
that's not necessarily true. You're just
Yeah.
aware of
Yeah. Yeah.
what is occurring. It doesn't mean that I don't have a phone. Doesn't mean that nothing's listening to me right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm on a computer, so
Hmm.
guessing it is something that's kind of forced upon. But
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely think that parallel universes, if anything, indicates that there is free will, and that free will can dictate a different alternate parallel universe, and
Hmm.
that therefore time traveling via using quantum computing to access parallel universes
Hmm.
via a portal like quantum traveling, then that's very plausible and realistic as an explanation behind
Yeah.
in general, which would really just not even really necessarily be time travel. It would just be considered parallel universe hopping and
Hmm.
traveling, and that would allow you to breach a certain time frame if figuring out the mathematics and the physics behind it added up.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think we will someday be able to make an exact replica of the human brain and actually create a human that would for all purposes be just that, a human that would have free will and everything?
That we'd have, a robot that you could, like I said, talk to your phone and ask it to set something for you, and it did,
Hmm.
communicating through the internet. You would have thought that's incredible,
Yeah.
that's impeccable, and when it comes to the human brain, I mean, it's still, there's so much already research that we know that, 40,
Hmm.
50, 100 years ago, let's say, they had no clue about. And so neural networks are also something that can come into play with this, and
Yeah.
simulating the brain in certain aspects, and
Hmm.
through science and physics, and through enough time and enough professionals and enough people passionate and caring and pushing it forward. I don't think that you'll have anything that's like organic.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll live like one of my favorite old movies, which was Artificial Intelligence, where
Yeah.
they had a son, and they
Yeah.
had their
Yeah.
artificial intelligent son created, and
Hmm.
um, he looked exactly like a human. I don't really think it'll ever be organic enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as far as like computing power of a brain, and functioning like a human in connection, that's one would say loosely that that's what the internet already is.
Yeah.
It's
True.
just a
True.
bunch of connections and neural networks, and
Hmm.
really just a bunch of connections together that function um, similar to a brain, but maybe
Yeah.
even more practically.
Yeah. Do you think there's anything fundamentally unique about humans? Are we just a collection of atoms in a brain? Do you think there's any soul?
Do I think that that's
Mhm.
an opinion that may be controversial, and a lot of people would say that's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
As far as like when it comes to a soul and the difference between bio, you know, mass,
Hmm.
the body of just a physical biological mass,
Hmm.
and the actual life that takes it.
Yeah.
I've had my own encounters and experiences enough to question that and think it's not just while the heart is beating,
Hmm.
existence exists. But then it's debatable. Personally, I think that if there truly is a creator that has created free will for once, and
Hmm.
this creator has control over the highest levels of all of the parallel universes, but truly allows us to create our own parallel universes.
Hmm.
I definitely can't imagine that upon death, that that would not return. The same mass would not be recycled and returned to from which it came from.
Yeah.
Um, does that mean that we cease to exist upon death? Nobody really can 100% say without 100% certainty until they've died, and even
Exactly.
then they can't. The chance of them coming back to really give a coherent and accurate explanation and that
Mm-hmm.
still be proven is very unlikely. So I
Yeah.
think that it's really something that we'll only know when we truly die for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I personally think that I'd like to think that we didn't come from just a black portal, and that there's just no meaning, and that everything that I see didn't happen by random occurrence over
Yeah.
many years. And that's just me personally. I've chosen the path of there is an intelligent designer.
Mm-hmm.
I have to see what that really would mean.
Mm-hmm. And there's a possibility someday that we'll create universes within maybe quantum computers.
That what quantum computers provides is, first of all, I mean, if we can break through parallel universes, and like we said, travel and obtain data and information and technology from the future,
Mm-hmm.
even, for example, I mean, that gives us the ability. Hey, okay, now we know how to access this information that we have, or now we know what to precisely do to a mathematical and schematic equation
Mm-hmm.
of how to access, this planet, this system, or how to harness the energy of something that otherwise, was thought impossible to harness. Or,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of discovery to be had when we really can access that information. And quantum computing may not give us the information to travel to different planets and different systems right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if it gives us access to, let's say, a situation or a parallel universe where that did exist, so preventative measure of that data being brought back to this parallel universe, if they even could get back,
Yeah.
um, then I think that it's really within reason to say that,
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely possible.
For sure. Can you tell me a little bit more about the nature of your work? What is it exactly that you do?
I started off in QA, and I kind of
Okay.
started working for the company more and I've been with this company for over 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But initially, I started off with standard QA job, and I was reviewing data and just really doing data analytics stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and more on the surfacey business marketing side. I didn't obviously do any sales, but
Yeah.
very much more in the public eye. And then over time, into me seeing some things more from the outside surface and being really fascinated with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the last 2 to 3 years within the company is where I really transitioned and just thought, you know what, I don't want to make, 15, $18 an hour
Yeah.
doing analytics stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I want to build it. I want to learn what they're doing and get in there and build it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be software that they're building for quantum computers, I want to be at the cutting edge of technology, whether it's artificial
Yeah.
intelligence or machine learning. I want to be there, and I want to be making it,
Mm-hmm.
and know what's really going on. So that's when that came about, I essentially quit my job for 4 months
Mm-hmm.
and communicated to them that I was going to teach myself how to code,
Oh
and I
wow.
did. I quit for 4 months, and even as an artist and a person who's
Mm-hmm.
didn't have some calculus beyond calculus level mathematics,
Yeah.
um, taught myself how to program, learn how to code,
Wow.
learn did a bunch of stuff with that, and then pretty much
Mm-hmm.
came right back and applied that right to a position right away.
That's impressive.
And they were glad to have me back. Yeah, so then
Mm-hmm.
that's where I started adventuring into technology and realizing that so far in the history, if we can look at what history has taught us, is that technology pushes everything,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's science, mathematics, physics.
It does.
Technology is really the root of everything.
For sure.
Once we figured out we could make a wheel, I mean, that changed the game.
Mm-hmm. Or once we
You know,
figured out that we can write
so
things down and document them, and we can pass knowledge down to future generations.
form of technology,
Mm-hmm.
as primary as it may seem, and it's possible that those things at some point were taught. I
Yeah.
think it's very safe to say that it's possible that in certain situations you look at mysteries of history and you think,
Mm-hmm.
how did they obtain this information, or how did they have this type of technology way before its time?
Yeah. That.
And so it's very possible that if there already was, you know, in our timeline, I guess, or our parallel universe is just an
Mm-hmm.
anticipation of a slightly different one to come, then it's highly possible that we could use quantum computing again, travel through parallel universes, end up through experimental process in times way prior, and go, whoa, okay, now we realize that this is what this query sent us to.
Mm-hmm.
And that information had to be explained, because I mean, you wouldn't want to die, right? I mean, if you were traveling and
Yeah,
you were in like a way prehistoric situation,
for
you
sure.
still wouldn't be like, okay, just take me. You would
Mm-hmm.
be trying to survive and communicate to any kind of person that you could
Yeah.
how you did what you did, and maybe even blend it into time. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I definitely technology is a tool, and that's what got me into it, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what's pushed me to learn new languages, um, and that's a fascinating thing to me in learning Python and TensorFlow, and
Yeah.
what we have going with PyTorch, even machine learning in general and artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
It's exponentially growing, and it's something that is pretty mind blowing if you really think about it and take a
It
step
really
back
is. Yeah,
and think
and
about where we've come.
yeah, and that's pretty cool. So, what is it exactly that the company you work for does?
It's almost like I don't want to say it's like a movie, because it feels sometimes like that.
Yeah.
But basically, we have like our main operation, right? So we're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to build um, different tools that will expedite the process of various different aspects of
Mm-hmm.
human existence, right? I mean, it can be really broad, because the tool itself can be used for a bunch of different things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, as a software engineer, if you know a bunch of different languages, you don't have to just work at Kaiser or Sutter Health or
Yeah.
and I'm trying to bring it, or Netflix. You can
Mm-hmm.
work anywhere, because the tool itself is what's used anywhere. So our
True.
company is actually developing a ton of different things, and some are more present, and obviously public.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there are operations that are more hush hush, where they require a series of clearance.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you start to really see some things, and realize that this isn't stuff that's just like science fiction.
Yeah.
This is truly occurring in our time, and has been. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's the part that's most intriguing, and also something that I feel that I'm okay to share with,
Okay.
and that I don't feel threatened about, because the reality is, if it's coming, it's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, they kind of say some weird stuff like, I'm scared about revealing it. I don't want my company to fire me, or
Yeah.
I don't want to, risk my life, and
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of stuff like that. And to me, it doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
That would be really a good idea. I think with certain things like extraterrestrial life and stuff, or
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that where government is really, really on it, there
Mm-hmm.
probably is a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah. Probably.
But and there are companies like mine that they can have a whole shell, and they're making a lot of money, and so they can fund what they want to do,
True. Mm-hmm.
um, and continue providing the products that they make, and
Yeah.
making a lot of money off that, while they are really secretly investing their money in what they want to build and what they want to see, so that they can come out on top
Mm-hmm.
of nature there. So
And there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that are going to be skeptical about your story and say, you can't really give us specifics because the company you work for doesn't really exist. What do you say to those people?
well, the first thing I'd say is, if you don't need to know my company, then you can still look at companies that already
Mm-hmm.
exist. Up D-Wave, look into quantum computing companies,
Mm-hmm.
look into what those companies that have made those quantum computers have said about commercializing them and selling them.
Mm-hmm.
Other theoretical physicists and people have kind of already spoken up about this. I mean, I know that there was a quote the other day that I'd heard or something, which was like,
Yeah.
somebody was in front of one and said, "It feels like an altar to an alien god."
Wow.
And so these are scientists. These aren't just
Wow.
people like me who you don't know. These are people that
Yeah.
have made their name known, very open, are producing, I think, 17 research articles already publicly available.
Mm-hmm.
And that a majority of what I'm saying, even in bioinformatics,
Mm-hmm.
is already existent. I myself am not a physicist, and I'm not like a mathematician,
Yeah.
and I'm not actually engineering quantum computers.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't let the fact that I'm not doing what's being done,
Yeah.
and therefore may not be able to give certain specifics or
Mm-hmm.
explain it in the best way, deter you from researching and looking into what really is there, and even the Zeno effect and quantum communication, and the fact that scientists have already achieved direct counterfactual communication.
What is that? What is direct counterfactual communication?
Communication is quantum communication where no particles travel between two recipients.
So
So
essentially
and I have
teleportation.
unstable like quantum system is repeatedly and continually measured, and I'm actually reading a quote here because I
Uh-huh.
actually had this up because I knew this might come up.
Yeah.
It stops time. So
What?
counterfactual communication, scientists have already achieved this. It's
What?
public. Counterfactual communication is a quantum communication where no particles
Mm-hmm.
travel between two recipients. When an unstable quantum system is repeatedly and continually measured, it stops time. Every time a particle's time evolution is measured, it stops time. This
Mm-hmm.
is called the Zeno effect. This means that time is stopped at a certain point, the Zeno effect, and something somewhere else is created in the other particles. You could
What?
eventually stop time and space in this reality
Uh-huh.
and contact or create another reality, a parallel universe in that time frame. A really simple explanation. Um, yeah, and then the kind of quote kind of goes into kind of what it is. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a Star Trek reference, which is a little out there because I think that's a little
Yeah.
science fiction. But
Yeah, yeah.
basically, they're saying beam their particles and reshape as a human organism somewhere. But instead, it wouldn't be like that as much as beaming them and assembling all the particles back together.
Yeah.
Um, but basically, a human organism from the light, or even not at all.
Wow, that just blew my
Articles about
mind.
that.
Yeah.
There's articles about that that really go into, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this could be how light is used to create what we even call reality.
Wow.
This is actually what virtual holographic imagery even really is.
Wow.
And so I'm always in the pursuit, and this is what I would
Mm-hmm.
say in that question and also add to it because I can talk a lot and typically talk too much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually my downfall, not saying enough specifics,
Mm-hmm.
is that, is that there's so much that I venture to and learn about and want to know for myself um, that I'm looking for real answers for
Yeah.
and explanations for that are as scientific, as proven, as mathematical, and as historically shown as possible.
Mm-hmm.
When some people say I believe in time travel, I think the standard person, like if my dad said that, I would say you're kooky. You're
Yeah.
just there's something going on there. But when you look at what you can do
Mm-hmm.
potentially with parallel universes, and if there is truly a artificial intelligent creator or simulation, and light is really just quantum communication,
Mm-hmm.
looking at a lot more of explanations and science behind what we just see and what can be done, and even support for some of the claims from the videos that I've heard on your channel. Other ones, not so
Mm-hmm.
much.
Yeah, yeah.
I can usually tell like somebody who's is completely making something up,
Mm-hmm.
or is intentionally saying I can't specify this or I can't say this. With me, it's like I'll get into the specifics if I'm asked the questions and I
Mm-hmm.
have time to research it. I'm not a computer. I have to process the data and actually do research and
Yeah.
come to conclusions. You say something right off the top of my head, I'm probably not going to remember it off the top of my head unless it's something that I'm really, really doing already.
Mm-hmm.
And in time, I will be
Mm-hmm.
fully a senior, artificial machine learning programmer. And
Yeah.
I will be working on projects that are more direct and obtain more information and
Mm-hmm.
have a better understanding as I continue to grow in computer science.
Yeah, this whole subject for me is really fascinating. I'm gonna research a lot more into this after this conversation because I find this whole thing really fascinating. I don't think people are aware of how big. I certainly wasn't before this interview. I don't think they're aware of how big of a shift this is going to be in human civilization.
And it really supports, I mean, if you think about it, okay, you're saying
Mm-hmm.
time travel, you're saying species and us being able to communicate with them and them
Yeah.
even traveling, their technology being going through different their way of communicating. How do they travel?
Mm-hmm.
How are they just disappearing or being shown the sky and gone? I mean, are they traveling using quantum computing for parallel universe travel to a specific science?
Yeah. Who
Machine
knows?
learning in there. Yeah, I mean, are
Mm-hmm.
they a combination of alien life form and machinery that's
Yeah.
way ahead of us, and they're just coming? Those are
Yeah.
things that are
That's
all now
entirely possible.
applicable to everything, ties together. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you want to look at something that's interesting, if you have a hard time believing some of this is like a real thing,
Mm-hmm.
go to dwaves.com, which is really just dwavesys is
Okay.
the example. Go to careers, look at machine learning research intern for informatics obviously this is in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and this position itself will give you some descriptions of what their responsibilities include and what they expect for qualifications. I mean, they expect for just this machine learning research intern that you're going to work closely with machine learning experts to design, implement, tune, and optimize machine learning algorithms, implementing experiments to test the quality of machine learning algorithms, validating promising research concepts, high quality Python implementations, applying software engineering best practices.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little more engineer side, but enrolled in a PhD program in computer science, statistics, applied mathematics, bioinformatics, biology, or related field, modern machine learning methods, and deep learning, strong coding abilities, and self-motivated with excellent problem-solving skills.
Yeah.
That's a real position that's open right now that you can apply for in Canada if you qualify.
Interesting.
Company that commercially sells quantum computers.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot there, and I definitely would love to tap into it. Even Lockheed Martin, I was never really one for Area 51 and didn't really understand much about Lockheed Martin, and some older guys came out and started spilling some beans, and some of them you go, okay, there's no way, and then other ones I look at things and they're telling the truth, and I look at it and I go, okay, well, why is Lockheed Martin purchasing a quantum computer?
Yeah,
they're purchasing it for their new jet, that they're testing. It's like, interesting. Why? What is that motive? They're going to use quantum computing for flight crafts, like me. So I think that's the interesting application, is that there's all these companies, including Google, that are purchasing these quantum computers from them. Not just a bunch of private companies like ours.
Mm-hmm. Well, Q, you've just opened up a whole new world for me, and I'm sure everybody else listening to this. Is there any final statements you'd like to say to the people out there?
First of all, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem.
Be able to kind of share some of my passion, and also share some things that are.
Yeah, thank you.
I think they're applicable. I think that they may not necessarily explain a definitive answer, and hopefully they don't rattle too many people, but I do hope that it opens up some opportunities for potentially even some other people on your channel who I've listened to videos of to discuss this, maybe from even a futuristic perspective. I'd love to see some of this outcome of artificial intelligence and what that looks like for the future. I hope that time travel is real. I hope that I get to experience it in my lifetime and traveling to a parallel universe. And I would definitely take my whole family with me, though. I wouldn't be going by myself.
For sure. Yeah. Well,
I think it's something that would be cool.
Yeah, Q, I'd love to stay in contact with you. Maybe we could do a follow-up interview sometime or something if you're open to it.
Like I said, I'm not particularly threatened or nervous. I have the FBI wants to interview me.
Oh, wow.
Which is an interesting thing in traveling to Washington and interviewing apparently in front of 5 different people, and I'm not allowed to say what it's about or anything yet. So
Wow.
I'm curious.
Yeah,
I'm curious about what's going on as I get more into technology. Doors open, and the more people start saying, oh, "Okay, will you do this for us?" And there's a need there. So, but I'm definitely open to communicating and setting up time. I told my wife that I was going to be talking for an hour, and she gave me the office to just blabber off about stuff that she knows I'm doing already.
Yeah, it's just opening so many doors, and I think you're at the forefront of it, and this is going to be really big in the future. And I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing some of your expertise regarding quantum computers and the future of computing and civilization as we know it. So I want to thank you for coming on today, and I wish you all the best, Q.
Thank you so much, Apex. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and thanks, everybody.
Yep, thank you.